is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Monday. It is Monday, March 26, 2012. It's definitely Monday. And it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us here for the show. We're going to have ourselves a good time and get a lot of education and a little bit of opinion in here while we do it. Welcome to NORML Show Live. If this is your first time here, we are here every weekday on the NORML Network at live.norml.org. In fact, there's always something playing. We are 420, 24/7, 365. Also joining us here in the studio, we've got our good friend Brian the Red. How you doing, Brian, out there on the side?
I'm doing all right. Looking a little washed out from the light, but I'm here.
The lights are so bright.
I'm a little more Casper-esque than I usually am.
I've given you +3 versus trolls, ogres, and idiots today. So if you have to roll any saving throws, be aware of that.
Okay, well, my dice are ready.
All right. Also joining us from our virtual studio in beautiful Astoria, Oregon, we have our senior news editor, Cannabis Carrie. Hi, Carrie. Oh, wait. She's got all sorts of interesting problems going on there. Are you there, Carrie?
No, I'm talking.
I can hear you.
I can hear you in a tunnel.
We're hearing you in a tunnel. We'll let you get to work on that, and then I'll tell folks what we're doing with our hemp headlines
Phantom
today.
Power. Oh.
Yeah, check the Phantom Power. Also, coming up, we've got our hemp headlines today. All sorts of interesting stories. We've got a new emerging detail in the Trayvon Martin case involving marijuana that we have to tell you about. I'm going to take a look at Arkansas's medical marijuana initiative. They're trying to pass medical marijuana there, and I'll give you the good and the bad in that initiative. We've got a look at... I'm not sure what else is in the news here. I haven't got Carrie's news thing up here, but I'll tell you what. We'll get to all of that after the first break. Did I say we were having a Monday today? Yeah, we are having a Monday today. We've also got our Roots Monday. That means country, jazz, folk, blues, acoustic music. Today we get some blues from a group called Smoke Ring Days, and the song is called Black Cow Blues. That's brought to us by Diamond Dale Rio, our new music editor on Mondays. At half past, we've got an interview with Charles Roundtree. He's one of 25 registered providers in the state of New Mexico for the medical marijuana dispensaries, and he's also running for the state senate in District 4. So he's going to come on, talk about New Mexico medical marijuana and his campaign. And then at the end of the show, if you saw my blog this weekend, on Sunday, I posted a story that was just shocking about how a Montana landlord who rented to a medical marijuana dispensary may be facing 3 years in prison. You won't believe who's not facing 3 years in prison in Montana this week as well. All that and more coming up on NORML Show Live. We are the voice of the Marijuana Nation. Stick around. We're back right after this.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Hi, I'm Radical Russ. One of the best things about marijuana is the wonderful aroma. But when you travel a lot like I do, that aroma becomes a suspicious smell. That's why I endorse stealth-products.com, the leaders in smell-proof containers. From smell-proof vacuum bags to smell-proof backpacks and duffel bags, all the way to smell-proof digital safes, stealth-products.com has you covered. Stealth-products.com brings you safe, secure, odorless layers of protection with activated carbon fiber.
Backpacks and duffel bags are simple black so as not to attract attention with a logo or flashy design. Now, nothing is perfectly odor controlled from the detection of drug dogs, but with proper vigilance, containers from stealth-products.com will help you avoid nosy humans.
You're now listening to Illit Beats.
Stealth-products.com. Stealth-products.com.
La cucaracha, ya no puede caminar.
You're listening to NORML Show Live.
Porque le falta marihuana que fumar.
The voice of the marijuana nation.
Weedmaps.com. I'm Radical Russ from NORML. In my job as outreach coordinator, I travel every month, and when I'm on the road, I need a fast, accurate way to find the medical marijuana dispensaries in the area. So I turn to Weedmaps.com. Weedmaps.com has the best dispensary locator online or on your mobile device. Search by zip code or let Weedmaps find you, and in seconds you'll have the addresses, phone numbers, and customer service reviews for the medical marijuana dispensaries in the local area. Weedmaps.com also has a section devoted to helping you find a doctor who understands and recommends medical marijuana under your state's law. You can even check prices on the Medical Marijuana Stock Exchange. Coming soon, you'll even be able to find the listings of NORML attorneys and chapters, local head shops and grow shops, and the best weed-friendly businesses. Weedmaps.com has the information you need to be an informed cannabis consumer. Visit Weedmaps.com today, a proud sponsor of the NORML Network.
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for NORML. And if you're one of the 26 million Americans who smoked marijuana last year, you need to get involved in the drive to legalize marijuana. We need your help to stop the senseless arrest of more than 800,000 Americans each year on marijuana charges. Together, we can end marijuana prohibition and stop the arrests of marijuana smokers. To learn what you can do to help, contact NORML at NORML.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORML.
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carry.
We're having some technical difficulties connecting with Cannabis Carry, so I'm Radical Russ with your NORML News. We had talked about the drug war in connection to the Thievin Martin case last week here on The Stash, and we were kind of surprised that it made the hemp headlines today. Over the weekend, details have emerged about the Thievin Martin case regarding marijuana. The case that has the current national spotlight took the life of a 17-year-old boy who was unarmed and walking home to deliver candy to his little brother when he was shot by a self-appointed neighborhood citizen watchman. That armed citizen claims self-defense and has not been arrested in the case. Reports started surfacing this weekend about Thievin being on suspension from school at the time of the shooting, and reports of him being a juvenile offender. One of those stories turned out to be true, the other was not. A spokesman for the Martin family released some details about the young man's reason for being at the home of his father's girlfriend. He was on suspension from school for having a plastic bag in his book bag that contained marijuana residue, but no actual marijuana, and this was at the school. He received 10 days suspension for that. The Sanford Police Department, who have been under fire for the way they handled the case, told the media that they had no authorized release of the suspension information about the victim, but acknowledged that there may have been a leak in the agency, and they are investigating that. The city manager said that they do not condone these unauthorized leaks of information. Family spokesperson Ryan Julison told reporters that the reason for Martin's school suspension had nothing to do with the events on the day he lost his life. Martin's mother, Sabrina Fulton, said in a news conference that she felt they killed her son, and now they're trying to kill his reputation, referring to news stories about her son's character. The family attorney, Benjamin Crump, said that the link between Thievin Martin and marijuana should have no bearing on the probe into his death. He said at a morning news conference today, quote, "If he and his friends experimented with marijuana, that is completely irrelevant. What does it have to do with killing their son?" Also on Monday, the State Department of Juvenile Justice responded to a public records request by the media that Thievin Martin did not have a juvenile offender record. So this is a sad story that we've been reporting on. Thievin Martin killed in Sanford, Florida. The marijuana does have something to do with how he was killed. I mean, tangentially, he wouldn't have been in Sanford. he was only in Sanford because he got suspended, right? He couldn't be where he normally would have been in school. I mean, but that, of course, has nothing to do and is no justification at all for the way that Zimmerman responded in shooting this unarmed 17-year-old boy. Again, I agree with the family in this case. This looks like character assassination, trying to say, well, it's like Geraldo Rivera over the weekend saying, well, he was wearing a hoodie. What did you expect? And now they're just trying to say, well, he was a doper. He was involved with drugs. What would you expect? It's despicable. It's character assassination. And again, it has no bearing on this case whatsoever. If anyone could have heard my stop talking in front of uniform speech, I wish it could have been this next man, a 19-year-old from Winder, Georgia. He was pulled over following a traffic stop after a police officer noticed that his passenger side brake light wasn't functioning properly. When the man opened his door and exited the vehicle, the officer who stopped him observed a cigar that had been cut open and the tobacco contents had been dumped into the door handle. He asked him if he would mind letting him search the vehicle due to the tobacco in the door handle. And I think tobacco in the door handle is legal. I think so. The man politely refused the police's request to search the vehicle. Great job. But when he was pressured by the officer who said that upon his refusal of a search, a canine unit was called in to conduct a free air sniff of the vehicle, the man then asked if he could be honest about some marijuana he had in the console of the car. Oh, my God. He admitted that he had marijuana and a glass pipe in his center console. Upon searching the vehicle, the officer found a diced pimentos jar with marijuana in it, a glass pipe with marijuana residue, and Bob Marley brand rolling papers. In a black bag found in the car, they also found a mason jar with marijuana residue and a grinder and a small digital scale that had marijuana residue in it. An iPhone that was found in the vehicle had a text message, "You got 3 grams mid." In the police report, the officer wrote, "Due to my knowledge, training, and experience, I knew the sender of the message wanted to purchase 3 grams of mid-grade marijuana. Because of that text, the man was also charged with intent to distribute, along with possession of drug paraphernalia and possession of marijuana. The police officer also gave him a ticket for defective equipment on the vehicle he was driving due to the malfunctioning brake light. He was placed under arrest and taken in." Okay, once again, stop talking in front of uniforms. Even if you're innocent, even if you're not hiding anything, even if you're telling the truth, don't say anything. Do not make a cop's job easier. Look, if you had marijuana in your car, you had it in the car, you got the grinder, you got all this crap in the car, right? And you got out of the car and the cop said, "Can I search?" And you said no. And he said, "Well, we're going to bring a canine in." Make him bring the canine in. You're not going to be any more busted when the canine finds that stuff than you would have been if the cop found that stuff. You're just as busted. As long as you're not telling him any lies like, "No, officer, I don't have any weed in the car," and then the canine shows up, well, now you're in trouble for obstruction of justice. Keep your mouth shut. Just say nothing. Say, "Officer, I'm sorry, I've been instructed not to talk to police without my lawyer present. I'd like to observe my right to remain silent. Am I free to go now?" That's all you need to say. He'd have been stuck there. You'd have forced him. Now, I know it's Georgia. And the cops can be real harsh there. I understand completely. But force them to have to go through the time and trouble. You might get lucky. You might get a cop that he's going to get off shift in an hour or so, doesn't want to take the time. You might have a situation where the canine dogs are all being used at that time and he can't bring one in. You've got to know your rights. And please go to a website called flexyourrights.org and you can learn all about this, learn how to deal with cop stops, and make sure to never give up your rights like that. All right, be careful with that cell phone, my stoner friends. Have you ever had that experience where you pocket dial a friend? Or you get a call from a friend and it's obvious the call is coming from their pants and they have no idea they called you? A man in Covington, Louisiana, accidentally pocket dialed 911 instead of a friend this weekend. As the emergency dispatcher tried to figure out if this call was an actual emergency, she heard a female voice scold someone. "If you're gonna smoke that shit, you gotta get out of my car." The overly helpful Louisiana dispatch officer then contacted the police, who, with their help, located the site of the call through the 911 system. They found out that the call was coming from a 2001 white Ford pickup that was parked in a grocery store lot near Highway 25 and Highway 190. When officers arrived at the truck, they identified the 21-year-old cell phone owner who admitted to police that the marijuana they found in the glove box was his. It was his girlfriend who told police that there was marijuana in the glove box. Police arrested the 21-year-old for 1 gram of marijuana and the 2 pipes that were removed from the vehicle. 1 gram in Louisiana. Poor man's got arrested here. And checking NORML.org/laws/LA. You can put in LA for Louisiana. You can put in your own state's abbreviation there. According to Louisiana law, for the possession of 1 gram of marijuana, first offense is a misdemeanor with 6 months incarceration and a $500 fine. And then, of course, this increases as you get a second or third offense. Second or third offense are felonies in the state of Louisiana. So this guy's, if he's not ever gotten busted before, this is his first strike. Next time they catch him, it's a felony in the state of Louisiana. And in the news of the weird, police today say they are investigating a robbery of a medical marijuana delivery man in West Covina, California. The weird part? The men who robbed the delivery guys were dressed as ninjas. As the rules surrounding the distribution of medical marijuana in Los Angeles County are murky at best, many brick and mortar stores that are still operating and a few that have been closed have turned to delivery services to get medical marijuana to patients. There have been a few reports of medical marijuana delivery people being robbed, but this is a first. The victim said that he had just dropped off a home delivery and was heading back to his car around 10 p.m. on Friday. He was confronted by 2 men who jumped out from behind some bushes, covered head to toe in black, waving batons and wearing masks over their faces. The delivery man was so startled that he dropped a bag with an unknown amount of marijuana and some money, and the ninjas snatched them up and ran. Now, as I was covering this story, I saw this as well, and what got me was the reaction of the cop who was the spokesperson talking about it here. This is from LA Now. The lieutenant is Lieutenant Alan Henley, and he says, the victim reported the crime to police, but added that he wasn't aware of any medical marijuana dispensaries in the area, such as the one the victim described. Quote, "That area is a combination of mostly residential and some commercial. I personally haven't heard of any sort of dispensary that goes out and makes home deliveries." It took me 5 seconds on weedmaps.com to find 35 medical marijuana delivery services in the West Covina zip code of 91790. Do they have the internets at your office, Lieutenant Henley? And finally, we got a story on Arkansas's medical marijuana initiative. They are trying to get this passed. I just wanted to give you a couple of highlights of this. On the bright side, Arkansas's medical marijuana initiative would include post-traumatic stress disorder as a qualifying condition, and has all the other typical conditions as well. This is Ryan Denham. He's the campaign manager for Arkansans for Compassionate Care. And you can learn more about this on our blog at stash.normal.org. But on the other hand, while PTSD is a good thing, on the other hand, it would limit cannabis only to pain patients who present with intractable pain. Now, the definition in the law of an intractable pain is pain that has not responded to ordinary medications, treatment, or surgical measures for more than 6 months. So, if you have, say, neuropathic pain, a condition for which we have more legitimate peer-reviewed gold standard research proving marijuana's superior efficacy to pharmaceuticals than any other pharmaceutical or any other condition for that matter. If you want that, if you got a pain condition in Arkansas, when this law passes, here's what you'd have to do to get medical marijuana. You'd have to go see your primary care physician for a diagnosis of your pain. Then you'd have to get a painkiller prescription for something that's toxic to your liver. And if that doesn't work, then you'll have to keep trying every other legal toxic painkiller, each one that has a risk for side effects and addiction. Then, if none of those drugs work, you'll have to try things like acupuncture or massage therapy, or any other sorts of treatments that might help reduce that pain. And then if the drugs and the surgeries don't work, then drugs and the treatments don't work, you'll have to try surgery or surgeries, each one of which is a risk for complications and death. Then finally, if all the drugs and the treatments and the surgeries haven't worked, and you've tried for at least 6 months, then you can try the medical marijuana that is superior to all the pills you've tried, has very mild side effects, including a pleasant one, is not toxic or addictive, and has never killed anyone in all human history. Also, this Arkansas Medical Marijuana Initiative forbids home growing if you live within 5 miles of a dispensary, or if you live farther than 5 miles from a dispensary and you choose to shop at one, and I mean one, you have to specify exactly the one dispensary at which you will shop. And I got plenty more on this. Check out the blog at stash.normal.org. I've listed all the good and the bad in the Arkansas initiative. Even though we still got to vote for it. Gotta pass. Gotta pass.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support Normal Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215. Or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
I can't believe I'm riding around in Cheech's van. The van made of weed.
It's not made of weed.
Oh, what's it made of? Hash? Shrooms? Lysergic acid diethylamide?
No, the van is just made of van.
Oh.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Roots Monday, our celebration of the music that evolved into the popular modern music of today. We pick the best of blues, country, folk, and jazz with a 420 feel and serve it up for you every Monday. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on Normal Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tune.
All right, we turn things over to our Roots Monday music editor, Diamond Dale Rio. Take it away, my man. Bring us some blues.
Hi, I'm Diamond Dale Rio, and I'm back for another Roots Monday. The band abound for this Roots Monday is Smoke Ring Days. I really like the name. Located in the New York area of the United States, the group's influences are R.E.M., Beatles, Todd Rundgren, CSMY, and Jefferson Airplane. Smoke Ring Days is composed of multi-instrumentalist vocalist Rick Appadillo and lead singer C.R. Kaiser Posner. They began playing together in Commonwealth, a well-known New York area rock cover band in the late 1970s, before collaborating on a single project known as Barbarian Lovers in 1984. Smoke Ring Days first formed in 1993 due to the desire to explore more guitar-driven and socio-political oriented genre of music. The band put out The Healing Time in 1994. Smoke Ring Days has been compared by critics to acts ranging from Fleetwood Mac to The Pretenders to R.E.M. They were a regular part of New York City's Greenwich Village music scene during the mid to late 1990s. Since that time, the creative collaborators have been busy composing and recording, working on multiple projects simultaneously. They've recorded under the names Barbarian Lovers, Smoke Ring Days, Spice House, and Symphony Electric. Combined, this duo has well over 250 tunes, in which someone is sure to find something they're liking. For Roots Monday, I've chosen an acoustic blues song, Black Cow Blues, a sweet song that may be being played on a dobro. Without further ado, Smoke Ring Days and Black Cow Blues.
the Venice Boardwalk a club where members can, with a doctor's okay, buy medical marijuana.
So I'm cursed that Hugh Hefner has
It was like a slap in their face.
Stop!
We want to go through all the steps and show you how intense it is to own a dispensary.
So you videotape that.
There were doctors' wards in Venice Beach. It got nasty.
The bigger it got, I guess, the more risky it got.
No, my picture's right here.
Look at you, kid. You're on the taper.
The LA Times front page.
Sean's a visionary, and he's a little ahead of himself, but, you know, so is I.
Hash Bar TV, the ultimate Cheech and Chong joint.
Pretty soon those doctor's offices were just sprouting up too, all along the boardwalk.
Catch Normal News with Cannabis Carry every weekday on Normal Show Live at 7 p.m. Eastern, here on the Normal Network. NORML stands for Reforming America's Prohibitionist Marijuana Laws, and that cannot happen without directly engaging our government and elected officials. Local NORML chapters and other affiliated activists relentlessly lobby our lawmakers for a change we can believe in, and report on their strategies and progress in this segment we call Our Government at Work.
All right, welcome back, folks. One of the things I've been preaching for a long time here is that we in the movement need to get involved with our politics. We need to run for office. We need to take a stand and get people in positions of power that know what the hell they're talking about when it comes to these issues. And we got one such gentleman on the phone right now from New Mexico, Charles Roundtree. He's on the phone here. How you doing, Charles?
Hey, Russ, pretty good. Thanks for having me on this evening.
I'm glad to have you here. Let me tell folks a little bit about your background here. You're the owner of the Grassroots RX, which is one of, 25 providers in New Mexico? Tell folks how that works.
Well, first of all, we're a nonprofit, so we're no one is really an owner. We have a board of director.
Right.
Grassroots is one of 25 producers here in the state, and we at Grassroots we advocate organic growing, pesticide free, and we have a very large contribution part of Grassroots for people that's on Social Security disability, and we have a very aggressive veterans program.
Excellent. Of course, New Mexico, in addition to California, the two states that will recognize post-traumatic stress disorder, and so I imagine that's very helpful for the veterans you work with.
Absolutely. Brian Crum, who actually brought that to the Department of Health, is one of my board of directors.
Oh, excellent.
And we have great feedback from the veterans as far as the medicinal cannabis. It keeps them off of the heavy narcotics and the cyclics and things like that. So we've had really good positive results.
And of course, why we've got you here today in the Government at Work segment is that in addition to working with Grassroots RX, you're a candidate for New Mexico State Senate in District 4. What made you want to run for State Senate?
Well, to be honest, and first let me say that I'm not some kind of left-wing radical, and I'm not a anti-government, but, basically out here, we have the same old scenario of politicians that make promises and never follow through, and I think it's time that we get back to people-voiced government, having the people part of the process and making decisions. And so finally, one day I woke up one morning and I said, I'm really going to try to make a difference. And that's initially that's what took me into the race for the state Senate. And
as far as this race for the state Senate, who are your opponents, and what does the campaign look like at this point?
The incumbent is Mr. Munoz, and then there's a Genevieve Jackson also is running, and I feel pretty strong in the race right now. However, we are we're a very depressed district. We have almost zero economy. So, the funding isn't there. The contributions isn't there at this point in time. But, and my campaign team consists of about 3 people. But you know what? We're out knocking on every door, walking all the neighborhoods, walking all the cities and the towns. And we feel pretty strong at this point. I believe people also are tired of the typical business as usual where politicians are making the promises. And so my word is really resonating within the communities. And I feel pretty strong about this race. And I'm also a huge advocate of hemp and bringing back hemp farming, especially in these rural, depressed areas where it can bring agriculture back to the communities, where we could put farmers back to work and then the farm help back to work, and all of the support companies that would follow that. We have almost no economy in District 4, and so we're really fighting hard to have the hemp bill passed out here.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, especially, out here in the western states. I think that's an issue that could really help. And especially, I know in New Mexico, aren't water rights something that's a big deal? And of course, hemp doesn't require a whole lot of water for growing. So maybe that's a part of the angle as well.
Well, water rights is a huge issue right now, with the Native American communities. And, basically the aquifer is under their native lands and their sacred lands. And, they really don't have an issue with regular folks like us using the water. It's the big companies that are coming in, taking hundreds of thousands of gallons, and they would like some sort of a reimbursement for that.
Sure, I could understand that. We're speaking with Charles Roundtree, who's running for the state senate in New Mexico in District 4. Charles, before we go too much further in the interview, do you have a website or more place where people can get more information or make donations?
Sure. It's CBR, the number 4, Senate.com.
CBR for
and
Senate.
even a dollar contribution from everybody that's out there listening would sure help us sew this Senate race up, I believe.
All right, and to move back to our world here with NORML and what we're working for, of course, legalization of marijuana, and part of that we've seen have been the states that have passed medical marijuana laws. And I want to get your take on something. In 2008, I interviewed a New Mexican woman named Bobby Wooten, and she's paraplegic, paralyzed from the waist down, a legit medical marijuana patient in New Mexico. I interviewed her in 2008 when she was getting evicted from her home because of her marijuana use. A new story popped up here. I just found it on the Daily Times from Farmington, New Mexico, talking about how now Bobby Wooten has to buy her marijuana off of the black market, off of street dealers, because there's such a scarcity of dispensaries. There's not one near her, and the one that she would want to go to in Alamogordo, she's afraid of crossing the Border Patrol checkpoint. So with your unique perspective, I'm wondering what you think about, poor Bobby Wooten having to go to the streets to get her medicine. And as state senator, how might you fix that problem?
Well, it's funny you should brought up Miss Wooten, because I just spoke with her about an hour ago.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And, grassroots here, which she was unaware of.
Okay.
We do cover with our delivery services. We deliver door to door. We don't believe in meeting in parking lots. And New Mexico does not really allow what we call storefronts or dispensaries. They want to stay away from that. And so, we do cover every part of New Mexico at a very minimal delivery charge to your door. And so we had a long discussion about the issues, also about being evicted and those issues. There's a senator right now that is really on the forefront, and I believe that he's quite active, actually, with NORML. His name is Senator Cisco McSorley.
Yes, I've met Senator McSorley. He's a fantastic leader.
And he is really fighting hard at this point in time to, sew up any loopholes that would allow renters to be evicted and things like that. So if you're on the medical program, you should not be allowed, or a landlord should not be allowed to make you leave.
Yeah.
And he's really fighting hard right now to try to clear that up and have some sort of legislation passed so that won't happen with these people that are renters at this time.
That is such good news. I'm glad to hear that Ms. Wooten's going to get some help from you guys. That's fantastic. And the other thing, too, is looking at this these medical marijuana laws. You're absolutely right. I was just going over the Arkansas initiative that they're proposing, and some of the newer states have actually addressed the issue of employment discrimination discrimination, housing discrimination. I mean, people not getting organ transplants, losing child custody, all because they're legal medical marijuana patients. So do you think those things can be granted in a medical scheme, or are we just going to have to go to full legalization before patients get all their rights?
No, I think that we can move forward towards the rights of patients. I mean, listen, if you have a heart medication, no one's going to kick you out of your apartment.
Sure.
And if you're prescribed this by your doctor, you should not be allowed to be kicked out of your apartment. And we're going to take this to the mat. We're going to fight for these rights for the patients.
Fantastic. You know, and then the Arkansas law, it's kind of interesting. It points out that the landlords can ban smoking marijuana, but they can't ban vaporizing edibles and other things. So kind of a compromise there, because so many of these buildings now are no smoking. So we're saying, okay, well, what about vaporizing? So that seems to be a workaround.
Right. And, you know, I'm a firm believer in, you know, let's take small steps. Let's get just things done with small steps, because then the accumulation of small steps makes big steps. If we jump in there and try to ask for too much, we're just going to get slammed. But if we go in and ask for a little bit and ask for a little bit more and ask for a little bit more, sooner or later we're going to achieve what we're looking for, the goal that we're trying to achieve.
Do you ever worry about medical marijuana ending up as a pharmaceutical drug, and then once we have that, the plant getting taken away from patients?
You know, I think cannabinoid medicine right now is the next billion-dollar pharmaceutical drug. I believe that the pharmaceutical companies, of course, out of the country are really studying cannabinoid medicine. Now, I attend all the Patients Out of Times conferences. So I discuss all of the issues with people like Guzman, Dr. Meshulam, etc. And, you know, at Grassroots, we really focus on cannabinoid medicine. We actually use their same extraction processes. We basically work with a lot of cancer patients, tumor patients, and we are seeing great results.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will be at the Patients Out of Time conference in Tucson coming up here in April. So if you're there, I'll love the opportunity to get to meet you in person.
No, I'll absolutely be there. I attend all these. We take the medicine really serious. I'm passionate about the medicine and the ability to be able to use this instead of things like Oxycontin and fentanyls and all of these really harsher drugs. And when we find that simply an extracted oil or infused hemp seed oil or even smoking can bring on the same types of relief over some of these really hard narcotics. And then when it comes to people like PTSD and things like that, you know, the cyclics that they have them on are really bad juju. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so we can give them an infused hemp seed oil, and it levels them right out. They're very calm. It takes away their stress, their anxiousness. And so we really advocate the medical cannabis program. And here in New Mexico, let me add that here in New Mexico, there was a fellow named Dominic Zerlo that actually kind of headed up the Department of Health. He's no longer there. He's worked with all levels of law enforcement, from the Department of Justice all the way down to the street police and education. And the Department of Justice really feels like New Mexico has a model program. And we do too as producers. We really feel, you know, we're limited by plant numbers, so there's no diversion, there's no excess. The process for patients to go through, you know, is very thorough. The process for producers to go through is very thorough and very regulated, which we're glad of. And we really feel like we have a model program, and we have no fear of the Department of Justice here in New Mexico. I mean that in a good way, because our program is so well regulated.
All right, so it's off the federal radar, and I guess that's helping the patients there to avoid the raids that we've been seeing in Colorado and California and other medical marijuana states. But once again, we're speaking with Charles Roundtree, who's running for New Mexico State Senate, District 4, also with where was that? I missed it. Grassroots, Grassroots RX. I was going to say Green Roots, and I knew that wasn't right. Grassroots RX. Give them the website again so they can...
It's CBR, the number 4, Senate.com.
All right. And one last question outside of the whole marijuana issue. What are some of the other issues that are near and dear to you and that you want to make a change in when you get to the state Senate?
Well, a huge issue of mine right now is school funding. We have children, because of the economy in District 4, we have children that are actually sharing books. And, the only way that I feel these children are going to stand a chance is with their education. We're 80% Native American out here. And, if you go to my website, you'll see what some of the homes look like and things like that. So the education part of District 4, I am very passionate about because, again, it's really the only way some of these children are going to get out of the same routine of their parents and grandparents is with their education, and we simply don't have it out here. We have land right issues. We have trying to bring new economy into the district, which nobody is really very aggressive about. And so there are several issues out here that we need to make a stand on.
All right. Well, thank you so much for making that stand and for running for your state Senate. Nothing more patriotic than doing that and wanting to serve your fellow citizens. We wish you luck on your campaign, and I hope to see you in Tucson.
You will see me down in Tucson. Let me just make one more point, that as a senator here in New Mexico, I will fight diligently on the rescheduling issue.
Oh, okay. And you're wanting to reschedule to...
Well, anything out of Schedule 1.
Anything out of Schedule 1. Okay. Got that. All right. Well, we'll make sure we highlight that fight as well. And thank you again for stopping by here at NORML Show Live.
Hey, feel free to give me a call anytime. I'd be glad to be on your radio anytime.
All right. Thank you so much. When we come back, time for a radical rant. You won't believe this next story out of Montana.
You're listening to NORML Show Live, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Our marijuana laws are terribly unfair, and they make criminals out of law-abiding citizens. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges, and we are unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They are average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. And it's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
Marijuana and alcohol are the two most popular recreational drugs in America. Marijuana smoking is non-toxic, relatively safe, and has a low risk of dependence. Alcohol drinking is potentially fatal, dangerous to society, and is quite addictive. Marijuana is safer, so why are we driving people to drink? That's the question of the new book, Marijuana is Safer, So Why Are We Driving People to Drink? By Paul Armentano, Mason Tvert, and Steve Fox. Visit Amazon.com or ChelseaGreen.com today to order your copy of Marijuana is Safer, or visit marijuanaissafer.com.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore! You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth!
And
and you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical rant.
All right, you remember those letters that we got from the U.S. attorneys? They went out to all the landlords who rent to medical marijuana operations. And you've heard it mostly in California, when they've sent the U.S. attorneys sent these letters out to the landlords. They say, hey, you're renting to medical marijuana. That's continuing criminal activity. That's drug trafficking. We're going to seize your property. We're going to take it all away. Well, in Montana, prosecutors have charged a landlord, and I believe this is the first prosecution I've heard going forward, and he now faces more prison time than the medical marijuana providers he rented to. This is an amazing story coming out of the Missoulian. Jonathan Janetsky, charged along with two others, is looking at up to 3 years in prison, according to his lawyer. But he says he didn't grow marijuana. He didn't sell marijuana. He was the landlord. The lawyer says, quote, he has no criminal history. He just rented to some people, end quote. To the best of the lawyer's knowledge, Janetsky is the only landlord charged as a result of 2 rounds of federal search warrants executed on medical marijuana operations in Montana last year. Janetsky is scheduled to be sentenced April 19th, day before 420. Oh, sad. On a charge of maintaining a drug-involved premises. Although that carries a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison and a $500,000 fine, along with 3 years supervised release, the lawyer said that the sentencing guidelines mean his client is likely looking at a recommendation of 30 to 36 months in federal prison. That's 2.5 to 3 years. He would end up serving more time than the actual people who grew the marijuana, according to the lawyer. So this is out of the Missoulian.com, Missoula, Montana, right? So landlord could have gotten 20 years, but he'll probably only get 2.5 to 3 years for just renting to medical marijuana dispensary operation. So I guess that's one less vote for Barack Obama next election. But even if Janetsky wasn't sitting in a prison cell, I wonder if he'd vote for the president who promised that federal authorities would have higher priorities than this, and that his attorney general, whose Department of Justice put out a memo confirming they wouldn't harass medical marijuana businesses operating in compliance with state law. Maybe he wouldn't vote for him anyway. I guess there's some kind of interesting priorities going on in Montana. And when stories like this come up, whenever I see these stories about someone getting sentenced for growing marijuana or selling marijuana, or in this case, being a landlord to someone who's selling marijuana, whenever I read these sentencings, the first thought that comes to my mind is, well, I wonder how much time a murderer gets in that state. I wonder how much time a rapist gets in that state. And so I start to Google. You've heard of the Google. It's on the internets. And I start to Google. I start to look around. And I'll look in that state. And I'll look through their news archives. And I'll see if I can find a story. And sure enough, I find this story that's going to blow you away here. This is out of Montana as well, from Missoula station KAJ18. Now, this took place about a month prior. This is a February story, right? So a month prior. So while Janetsky, right, our landlord, might be sitting in a prison for 3 years for providing a business for medical marijuana providers to help sick people get their medicine, the person who will be out walking the streets is named Kyle Eugene Avery. Let me give you a little tip here on Kyle Eugene Avery. This is from the Missoula KAJ18. A Missoula man who's accused of raping his ex-girlfriend and her roommate may not spend any more time in jail after prosecutors dismissed 2 sex charges against him in a plea agreement. Prosecutors say Kyle Eugene Avery also sexually assaulted another woman while she slept, but they dropped the 2 rape charges, and Avery is now facing a sexual assault and tampering with evidence charge because after he got caught, investigators say he licked his fingers to get rid of the evidence. Ugh. Despite the Missoula County Attorney's objection, the judge released Avery from jail while he awaits his sentencing. He's walking the streets of Montana, and the plea agreement calls for a suspended sentence. That means no time served. That means just time served, right? The time he's been in jail waiting for trial. That'll be fine. Suspended sentence for this guy who was accused of raping 2 women and sexually assaulting a third while she slept. The judge said, nah, we don't need to hold on to him. Let him go. Now, have you seen this guy's rap sheet? This isn't the first time Kyle Eugene Avery's been under the crosshairs of law enforcement. His rap sheet begins, at least as far back as I can find on the internet, back in Oklahoma with a conviction for first-degree arson in 2008, for which he served 1 year in prison, 2 years suspended. In 2009, he racked up a charge for sexual battery, but the case was dismissed. In June of 2011, this according to the McAllister News Capital, or McAllister, excuse me, News Capital in Oklahoma, in June of 2011, Kyle Eugene Avery, age 21, allegedly engaged in inappropriate sexual behavior with a 14-year-old girl, according to court records, and was charged September 23rd with 1 count of lewd or indecent proposals or acts to a child under 16 years of age. And that's still pending. Those charges are still pending. And then we get the cases for which the prosecution traded away the 2 rape charges to get a plea deal on sexual assault and an evidence tampering charge. Let me read to you the Missoulian.com coverage of that trial that happened earlier, of the charges that happened earlier. The 21-year-old man is charged with 2 counts of sexual intercourse without consent, both felonies punishable by up to 100 years in prison, with an additional count of misdemeanor sexual assault. Avery is alleged to have raped his then-girlfriend in early August and then raped her roommate a month later. The third alleged victim reported to police that Avery exposed himself in her home after trying to touch her on the groin with his foot on 2 occasions on the morning of September 4th. All 3 women went to the Missoula Police Department on the evening of September 5th. Charging documents state that Avery at first denied even knowing the alleged victims or any details about the allegations. He then later admitted to having sex with his girlfriend in early August and confessed to kissing and stuff with the second woman, who had taken the defendant on a drive to confront him about his alleged acts on her roommate. On that drive, Avery allegedly fondled and kissed the woman while she drove and then raped her. Kicked out of both homes, Avery stayed the night of September 3rd and 4th at the home of the third alleged victim. Their documents state he told the woman's son that he thought about, quote, doing your mom, end quote. So, instead of the possible 100 years, or 200 years if they were served consecutively and not concurrently, that Kyle Eugene Avery could be serving for 2 rapes, and what the hell, let's figure in the karma for previous lewd conduct with kids, sexual battery, and oh yeah, a freaking felony, arson, he faces a misdemeanor. And what's the punishment for that misdemeanor? Well, story from Montana from earlier this year. The Montana House of Representatives passed a bill that would increase the penalty for sexual assault crimes. Currently, a person convicted of sexual assault is fined up to $500 and can be imprisoned for up to 6 months. Under Senator Taylor Brown's bill, the penalties double for a second-time offender, then increase to $10,000 and 5 years in prison for a third-time offender. So, but he's going to get a suspended sentence. Remember, they're going to suspend that sentence as part of the plea agreement there. So that leads us with, let's see, no time in jail for a serial raping arsonist. And we've got 3 years in jail for a medical marijuana landlord, just in case you're keeping track there at home. Now, in Montana, by the way, looking at Montana's marijuana laws, if you can find these at norml.org/laws/MT, that bill that the Montana House passed. Let's go back to that for a second, that very ending part, right? Under the new bill, first-time sexual assaults, $500, 6 months. Second time, $1,000 a year. And then third time, $10,000 and 5 years in prison. So misdemeanor, then a felony, right? Well, Montana's laws for possession, not growing, not selling, possession of marijuana, 60 grams or less, 60 grams would be, 2.5 ounces or so? Misdemeanor, 6 months, fine up to $500. So, in case you're keeping track here, possessing a couple of ounces of weed, sexually assaulting someone, it's about the same. The second offense in Montana for possession of 60 grams or less is a felony with 3 years and a $1,000 fine. So, second time you sexually assault someone, a year and $1,000. Second time you're caught with a couple ounces of weed, 3 years and $1,000 and a felony. And and then anything more than 60 grams is automatically a felony, 20 years, $50,000 fine. So once again, Caught third time sexually assaulting someone, $10,000 fine, 5 years in prison. Caught with 3 ounces of marijuana, 20 years, $50,000 fine. Does this make sense to anyone out there? Even if you are the kind of person who hates pot, hates potheads, thinks it leads to heroin, does it make sense to you that we are letting serial raping arsonists walk the streets while landlords who never touched marijuana are going to get 3 years in prison? This is what the war on drugs has done to us. And there was an amazing piece that Radley Balco put out on the Huffington Post last year as a 2011 piece, I think around November, where he highlighted how the drug war has skewed police priorities. Because of asset forfeiture, because of the restitutions they get, they make profit from prosecuting drug crimes. They have federal grants to catch potheads. There are no federal grants to catch rapists. There are no federal grants to catch arsonists. It is in a police department's best interest, profit-wise, to go after marijuana consumers, drug offenders, rather than go after serious violent crimes. In Tennessee, there was a study where they were taking a look at the trafficking corridor, the main freeway that would lead from the growers to the distribution centers, and that they found that on the way to the grow, there was 1/10 as many patrols as on the way from the grow on the other side of the freeway. 10 times more patrols on the way from. Why? Because they want the growers to be able to sell the weed so that there's money to be made when they come back the other way, so that they can do asset forfeiture on the cash. They're fine with the weed getting sold and getting out to, oh, what about the children? Just so long as it brings in the money to the police department to be able to pick it up on the freeway, like running through a cash register in Tennessee. This is going on all over America and going on to a much greater extent all around the world, where corruption is rampant, where 40% of Guatemala is run by drug gangs, where we have 50,000 Mexicans killed, with police corrupt, administration corrupt, officials corrupt. The drug war corrupts absolutely. And this example in Montana is just one little microcosm of how absurd, abhorrent, Kafkaesque, Orwellian, and an abomination that it has become. This is why legalization is so important and why we're here every day talking about it, every day trying to motivate you to do something about it. It's not a question of when they legalize marijuana, it's a question of when you legalize marijuana. I'm Radical Russ for Brian the Red and Cannabis Carry. Thanks for joining us here, and stay tuned for Hour 2 Toker Talk Radio, coming soon as a podcast on April 2nd. Stay tuned for more details. And for everyone here at the NORML Foundation, thanks for joining us. We got more podcasts coming up. It's Texas Night with Dean Becker and the Drug Truth Network, followed by Dean Schwag and Professor Blunston on the Can of Truth Reefer Rhetoric. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it out one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant